We meet 3 times a week, and we get into some really intense stuff on hard assets and how to hedge, how to remove inflation from your life by moving your electronic money into hard assets. And I create spreadsheets and charts and graphs. I make it really granular so that people can understand it. But last night, we talked about the combination of ivermectin and fenbenzidol
Right.
to cure cancer.
Wow.
The week before, we talked about dimethyl sulfoxide, DMSO. Next week, we're talking about methylene blue. But the previous weeks were all financial presentations.
Well, can people join this Gordon Phillips Academy?
Oh,
Because
sure, yeah. We
all
can
right,
always we can always squeeze in one more. Maybe I'll have to give you an honorary hall pass. We'll make you a student, honorary student.
man, if I got one of those, I would be in your. You see me a lot.
We started trading, got good at it, started teaching, helped to develop automated trading software, helped some friends and family recover from the market crash of 2000, rebuild their portfolio. And one day somebody said, "Would you consult for me?" And again, I looked around like, am I the only person? Am I a consultant? I guess I'm a consultant. I had no idea.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Jazz for Peace podcast, where the final solution is love. And today, you're not only going to get love, but you are going to get some serious knowledge because we have Mr. Gordon Phillips, and he's got a package deal for you because he comes from a music background, knows a lot about music. He could talk about music the whole time, but he also knows finance, and he also knows what's going on with history and basically the fallacy that many of you, I hope, are becoming privy to. All these crazy things that turns out to be something completely different than what we were told. And everything is just upside down. It's the fourth turning and times are going to get crazier. Gordon is going to talk to us about that. And he's also going to talk to us about an extraordinary book he has. And the book is called The Risky Reader: Essays on Fallen Freedoms, Cultural Collapse, and the New America, focusing on what he perceives as the decline of American freedoms and cultural values. And holy Jesus, is that a lot to talk about with the move that I think we're trying to make right now into arbitration, where we even remove the court system and you're going to be arbitrated on by some social media arbitrator, which could be like a teenager. That's your arbitrator, and they just tell the teenager what to say to you. And now, boom, you know what I mean? The gavel comes down on you. You have no recourse.
Sounds
so we're
good.
headed into wild things. We're going to bring Gordon on, but I'm going to play a little jazz. And Gordon has talked about how he's familiar with some people, two of them being Jaco Pastorius and Eddie Gomez, some of the greatest players who ever lived. So I'm going to play a little bit of a song that I wrote together with Eddie Gomez, because as some of you listeners know, Eddie Gomez is a longtime bass player with me, and he played with me on the very first Jazz for Peace concert, of which the 25th anniversary is coming up next year. The first Jazz for Peace concert took place in upstate New York, and he played with me on the first gig after 9/11. We had a festival with Lenny White, the great drummer. The three of us went to Savannah, Georgia, and played this festival for 8,500 people, where I read a poem called Jazz for Peace that really shocked everything. And Gordon and I were talking about the Civil War, which he knows how fake that whole story is. And I read that in Savannah, and my poem went north about as fast as Sherman went south. So here we are today. I'm going to kind of bring Weather Report, Jaco Pastorius, and Eddie Gomez. Somehow we're going to converge on this thing that we're going to make up right now.
Nice, brother.
Thank
Very, very nice. Righteous. That was
you. Hey,
good. That was
thanks a
good.
lot, man. You'll never hear anything like it on any other show. It's just,
It took me a second.
our energy.
Took me a second to realize you were playing live. Whoa, 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 whoa! This is great. Whoa, yeah. Nice harmonies.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Ooh, really good.
How did base and the financial markets merge? Because I told you off camera how that merged for me. I started studying financial markets at one point.
It was a slam dunk. I was in music till I was about 40 years old. I was in commercial music towards the end, doing a lot of functions, private functions, corporate events. And one day I just realized I wasn't having fun anymore. And then, as the universe would have it, a friend of mine one day picked up the phone and called me and said, I swear these were his exact words, did you know the Federal Reserve is not federal? He was all excited. I was looking for the hidden camera. Like, is this a joke? He was dead serious. I did some errands, came back. My fax machine had run out. He sent me so much stuff. I sat down and read it and went right down the rabbit hole. Within
Now,
one
how old
year,
were you when this happened?
about 41.
Okay.
Within 1 year, I was crisscrossing the country, giving lectures on the limited power of federal taxation under the Constitution,
Wow.
and then started a family and thought this is not a good career path. And so I had always loved math and science. I learned how to invest. Then I discovered currency, the foreign exchange market in 1990. In 2000, sorry, started trading, got good at it, started teaching, helped to develop automated trading software, helped some friends and family recover from the market crash of 2000, rebuild their portfolio. And one day somebody said, would you consult for me? And again, I looked around like, am I the only person? Am I a consultant? I guess I'm a consultant. I had no idea. So that's what I did from that point on.
When that guy gave you that call about the Federal Reserve, is that Jekyll Island guy?
I opened on stage in Vegas for Ed Griffin.
Ed Griffin.
G. Edward Griffin, who wrote The Creature.
Right.
And I confronted him backstage because most of his book, I don't want to get sued here, most of his book appeared to me, in my opinion, unverified,
right,
to have been lifted in large part from another book called Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins.
Wow.
And in his book, Ed in The Creature, he talks about the 16th Amendment. And so I pointed out backstage that he really was mistaken. He should have left that out of his book because the 16th Amendment never actually amended the Constitution. It was a psychological operation in its day. And he got upset and left the room.
Wow.
Last time I ever saw him. The 16th Amendment says that income from any source derived is not subject to enumeration or apportionment. But that was always true because there are only two classes of taxation in the Constitution, direct and indirect. Direct taxes are apportioned to the states in times of fiscal emergency based upon population, based upon a decennial census. That's how representatives are also decided. And the income tax is an indirect tax in the form of an excise. And so indirect taxes have never been subject to apportionment or census because they're not direct taxes. So,
Okay.
so Congress put this, they got this case up to the Supreme Court. They had no choice but to rule on it. And in a couple of significant Supreme Court decisions, they used the exact phrase, quote unquote, no new power of taxation, unquote, in reference to the 16th. So by the time the ink had dried on the 16th, those clauses in the Constitution that oversaw how direct taxes are applied and those that oversee how indirect taxes apply were still in full force and effect. They weren't modified, they weren't amended, and the Constitution can't conflict with itself. And so the 16th was a psychological operation in conjunction with the passage of the Income Tax Act of 1913 and the Federal Reserve Act in the same year. It was an unholy trio, and it was the beginning of the usurpation of American labor. It was a campaign to gradually transfer wealth over generations from producers to non-producers. That's what it's done. The dollar, quote unquote, the Federal Reserve note, has lost 96% of its purchasing power since it was put into circulation in 1914. It's a farce.
Correct.
It's a farce.
It's
It's a
a
joke.
farce. It's a joke.
Yeah, it is.
And the whole thing about it is the worker, the producer, the guy who does all the work.
Yeah, like me and you.
Yes.
Yeah.
The guys who do nothing.
Yeah.
Get all of it almost. I mean, they get, again, the same thing you're talking about where 90% of his purchasing power, by the same token, the worker has lost 90% of what he's supposed to be receiving.
Of course.
And these people who do absolutely nothing, but you can see it as a fractal. All of these things are fractals. Isn't
That's
that
right.
correct?
That's right. Well, I said in the pre-interview that before the show started that I started an online school to teach these principles. And one of the things I showed everybody a few weeks ago, which is kind of funny if you think about it, used cars towards the end of their life depreciate at about 12% a year. The dollar has been depreciating at a real 6% per year. So if you're holding your entire financial retirement nest egg in 401ks, IRAs, SEPs, KIOs, bank CDs, whatever, it's only losing value half as fast as a used car. When you put it that way, it's like, what? What did he say? So these teaching, it's a great teaching moment because it's like the V8 moment where I should have had a V8. You slap yourself and go, holy mackerel, I finally just got it. There used to be a commercial on TV for V8 tomato juice.
V8
I should have had
tomato
it.
juice.
I should have had a
Okay.
V8 slap, slap yourself.
Right.
So I have a lot of fun on these teaching sessions because basically I've got some pretty smart friends and students. But basically, you still have to talk to people like they're in the 5th grade. If you want somebody to understand something, you have to teach it at a 10-year-old level. Because I homeschooled all 3 of my kids, and if they understood it when they were 10, I knew I could explain it to any grown-up.
Well, this phone call that you received, that was the big turning point for you.
It was incredible. It was incredible. It was just like a bolt out of the blue. This one of those things that happens in your life and changes everything.
And one of the first things he told you was the whole Federal Reserve was a scam, kind of what G. Griffith kind of says, right? G. Edward Griffith, similar to what G. Edward Griffith says, but you're saying he got a lot of it from somebody else, right?
Well, it's remarkable how similar it is to the previous book.
Right.
I'm certainly not accusing the man of plagiarism, but I'm kind of shocked. Matter of fact, the better book of the two is Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins.
Okay.
Who was a young man, was commissioned to go to the New York Public Library. At that time, all the papers of the formation of the Federal Reserve were available for public scrutiny. Like the names of the foreign families and banking families that owned the Class A preferred voting stock of the Federal Reserve Corporation. That's all been scrubbed from the record.
Wow. Okay.
And that's
so you used to be able to get those names.
Well, it's all in his book. It's all in his book. You can still buy the book. You can still find used copies online.
Okay, but he's not alive anymore, right? That guy?
No, he passed a number of years ago.
So this guy tells you about that. That blows the ceiling off everything when you found out that our whole country is basically a farce, right? At that point.
Well, I had a suspicion my whole life that something wasn't right. I just didn't feel like I fit. I just couldn't put my finger on it. hypocrisy. We just sensed it. The whole
Right.
Vietnam thing, Nixon, everything.
Everything.
And then when I learned that this was actually a private corporation, because
Hmm.
back in the day we had telephone books, right? The big yellow pages. But the
Right.
middle part, the pages were all blue. Those were the government listings.
Uh-huh.
And the Federal Reserve wasn't in there. It was out in the white section next to federal dry cleaners and, federal sewer pumping or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's a
That
private
was just to
company.
throw us completely off, or just it was a private
Yeah.
company.
So it woke me up. It basically woke me up. And then I started reading everything I get my hands on. And then
Wow.
as I like to joke, years later when the movie The Matrix came along, so
Hmm.
we see Morpheus gives Neo the red pill and the blue pill. Well, I like to joke that he palmed the green pill. Because you take the green pill, you go down way further than Alice ever went. You go to the bottom of the hole. It's called the money hole. At
Hmm.
the bottom is big money, big war, big industry, big pharma, big med, big drugs, big education, big everything. It's all run on money. Has been for a long, long time. Once you understand that, everything becomes crystal clear.
And it seems to all be run by a very small amount of people, like an ever dwindling amount of people. As we, again, that fractal of the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, there's less and less people running everything, the whole
Well, it,
world.
it goes all the way to the top. And if you try to go there, you come off looking like a kook, like a whack job, like you're a conspiracy theorist. But the fact is, history is nothing but the tale of conspiracies. In other words, people, wealthy, powerful people, being human beings, have done what you and I do. They act in their own self interest. That's only natural. They get
Right,
together privately and they make agreements to do things that benefit them, their plans, their mission, their intentions, and they
right,
leave the rest of us out of it. Now, you can
right.
call it a conspiracy or whatever you want to call it, but it still is what it is. As if there weren't
It's
for conspiracy, there'd be no history at all.
No, and it's that's what I was talking on camera. So much of it is human nature because you'll see families doing these things. Now they said the study of narcissism or whatever, where you had this one guy who's the truth teller, and they marginalize him to the
Yeah,
and then they pin everything on him or make it the projecting where people project their own
100%.
self-loathing self onto someone else, and then
Trans-
they hate that. Then they can hate that person because it's not them. They project, oh, I'll project me onto you, then I'll hate you. I don't get to hate. That'll relieve me from hating myself.
it's called it's
All
called
these
it's
crazy.
called transference. Last night on our class, we have a book of the week. Last night's book was The True Believer by Eric Hoffer, Hoffer. The book is so powerful. I forget the subtitle, The Psychology of Mass Movements, something like that.
Mhm.
It's just one of those books. I mean, I've got over 5,000 books in my home library, and there's just a few dozen that are just stunningly life changing and eye opening. And that's one of them, The True Believer. And he explains the psychology of human psychology of why mass movements occur and why they exist. And he talks about people who have nothing, hate themselves, won't admit it, and then even resent you if you try to help them. It's just, what I mean?
Right.
It's very profound book. But it explains all the movements, all the psyche, all the just radical movements, political movements, even religious zealotry.
Hmm.
It's just all human nature. Human nature.
It's human nature because
Yeah.
you see someone, you see someone with an addiction, right? But you see somebody else again with these money that they've got billions, but they're still not okay with themselves. And the only way they think to get better would be more billions. The billions that didn't help them are going to somehow help them if they just get more of them.
No, I understand. It's a self reinforcing feedback loop.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Which you can even go into, concerns they're having about Arctic sea ice.
Oh yeah. So a number of years ago, so I had my first child at 53 years old,
Hmm.
which is kind of
Oh,
unusual.
okay.
So right
Yeah.
now I have a 19-year-old, a 24-year-old, and a 26-year-old, and I'll be 79 this year. And we
Wow.
all we all live together. We're incredibly tight as a family, and
Amazing.
and all the things we're talking about, I taught them when I homeschooled them, starting from when they were old enough to have an adult conversation with them.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So it sounds to me like you created your own America for you, basically. You're like, okay, I'm not sending these kids to these schools. This is
Well,
the American school I'm supposed to send them to. I'm going to bring them up myself. I mean,
well,
you had a better way. You just had a better way than the way they were offering.
they turned out pretty well. So I guess it was, I made some mistakes along the way. But the challenge is this: you don't want to turn your children into little rebellious freedom fighters. They have to be adjusted. They have to fit in with society. They have to learn how to be smart enough to know when to act dumb enough to get along. So again, if you create picture stories that people can understand, like the movie The Truman Show,
Right.
okay? Everybody living in the truth, they have no idea that they're living in a manufactured environment. Well, the actors all do, but Truman's the one who doesn't know, right? And
Right.
then he finds his own back door at the end of the movie. Well, I like to say that everyone has their own back door. You just have to find your own back door. And then once you leave the theater, in my world, outside the theater is what I call the Truman Show RV park and campground. And everybody out there is having a great time playing the guitar, playing music, playing the piano, writing poetry, giving each other back rubs, cooking marshmallows, homeschooling each other's kids, living real life in the real world. But when the alarm clock goes off, you got to get your job is in the Truman Show. That's
Right.
where the dentist is, and the ATM, and Walmart, and Home Depot. And so now you're in there with all the Trumanites. And you have to be very careful to keep your humility because you're not any better than anybody else. You just happen to wake up. Don't be an elitist. Don't be a snob. Love people. Meet them at their own level. Be gracious. Be humble. Be kind. Be friendly. And if you befriend somebody who's waking up, help them blow the dust off their eyes. And then at the end of the day, you clock out and you go back out to the campground and hang out with your buddies in the real world. And once my kids understood that, they were able to quote unquote function in society and have jobs with, quote unquote normal coworkers. But the information that they possess, what they actually know about how the world operates, is on a completely different plane. And that's the power of being able to be one of your children's educators. I mean, I wasn't the sole source. They had a very, very varied homeschool curriculum from lots of different teachers and sources. But I wanted to make sure that some of these important principles that I put into that book, that they got into their skulls at a young age.
Right,
So,
which brings us to the book and the fact that it is a compilation of things that
mhm.
were collected over the years.
Yeah.
So some of these were related to actual homeschooling.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. One of them, very humorously, is called Dad's Evil Homeschool Exam or something. It's really funny.
Hmm.
You'll get a kick out of it if you read it. The book is just a collection of essays.
Right.
Some of them are a page long. Some of them are 5 pages long. It's about 70 of them. I
Hmm.
wrote them over a 30-year period. I never published them. Some of them were just cathartic. Some of them I shared
Right.
with the kids. And
Mhm.
then a year ago, I decided to put them all in a book. So I spent a long time cleaning them up, re-editing them, bringing them up to date. And there you go. I've just published it on Amazon about a month ago.
How do you make whole the fact that you've kind of uncovered that almost everything is fake? We're actually in a Truman Show.
Yeah.
Everything from 9/11 to every single crazy thing. We talked about the Civil War, how that you said is completely different from the information that we have.
You'll hear the expression, what woke you up? Someone will say, well, I'm awake now. Well, what woke you up? It could have been anything. But you just have to keep everything in perspective. It's really important to keep everything in perspective because you'll go through the phases of grief. Like I think, who was it? Kubler-Ross in her book about the 5 stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually wrote an article, an essay in the book where I talk about, first of all, there's shock, and then denial, bargaining with God, and then anger, depression, and acceptance. But I said, tongue in cheek, that they left out the 6th phase, which is amusement.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you go through all this
It
and you
becomes
step back
hilarious.
far enough, you get back far enough
Right.
to become what I call an observer,
Right.
and you see it as the giant game that humanity plays over the millennia, you stop being emotionally involved in it. And again, it's not because you're any better or smarter. There's no conceit, there's no elitism. It doesn't mean you don't care. I care very deeply about human suffering. And I taught my kids the only reason we're here on this planet is to help each other. I started talking like that when they were 3 years old. But
Right.
when you step back far enough to be an observer, it all makes sense. If I were an insane, incredibly wealthy sociopath with all the money and power in the world, I would do exactly
Right.
what they're doing
Right.
because they're not any smarter than the rest of us. They just have incredible, ungodly resources at their disposal. And so when you put yourself in their shoes, and then a pandemic comes out, and then a war starts, and you see the tectonic moves of money around the world, that's what
Right.
I would do. I would do it so you can almost see what's coming. It doesn't make you some kind of Nostradamus, but you can almost see what's coming. And then you can start to prepare many years ahead of what's almost inevitable that other people just don't see. And I started this school. I felt kind of sheepish calling it after my own name, but I thought, hey, if Tucker Carlson could do it, I guess I can too.
Well,
So
the
I call,
school is the Gordon Phillips Academy.
yeah, GordonPhillipsAcademy.com.
Yeah.
And I only started a couple of months ago. I've got just a couple dozen students. It's very small, but we meet 3 times a week, and we get into some really intense stuff.
Yeah.
So as I was saying earlier when we spoke last night, we talked about the combination of ivermectin and fenbenzidole
Right.
to cure
Wow.
cancer. The week before, we talked about dimethyl sulfoxide, DMSO. Next week, we're talking about methylene blue. But the previous weeks were all financial presentations on hard assets and how to hedge, how to remove inflation from your life by moving your electronic money into hard assets. And I create spreadsheets and charts and graphs. I make it really granular so that people can understand it. But as I like to joke, we don't ever go beyond 7th grade math because everybody hated math by the time they got to the 7th grade.
Can people join this Gordon Phillips Academy?
Oh,
Because
sure, yeah.
I, all right,
We can
because
always squeeze in one more. Maybe I'll have to give you an honorary hall pass. We'll make you a student, honorary student.
man, if I got one of those, I would be in your. You see me a lot. You see me a lot because I tell you, I could talk to you. Just the ivermectin thing, I could go on for a long time. But I mean, there's so many other things. The financial thing that we talked about, I could go a
Yeah,
long time. The outrageous, insane stories, but also the fractal of human nature. You know, if you take a person, doesn't matter who he thinks he is over here. When you put him over here, he does the same thing as those other people.
yeah, totally.
They degenerate in the same way.
Yeah,
It's like
and
whack-a-mole.
90% of what we call logical, rational thought comes from our reptilian hindbrain, the amygdala, and all it knows is: do I eat it? Do I kill it? Do I run? Or do I play dead? And
Right.
so when you realize that most human behavior comes from fear at all different levels, then you get
Mhm.
into risk management, which is what I specialized in. Because I never became licensed. I never wanted to hold a license. I wanted to be completely independent of Wall Street. And so I called myself a financial unplanner, which I thought was a great handle.
Right. I saw that. I
Yeah.
saw that.
And people would say, well, I want to make money. I say, nope, 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 nope. Go find someone else. Making money's easy. What's hard and you're going to hate is making sure that you've worked your tail off for 40, 50 years. You do not want to give that money back to the market, to corrupt politicians and white shoe bankers. You want to understand the risks that your family faces: dollar risk, geopolitical risk, domestic risk, market risk, lawsuit, asset risk. If you get sick, 2 breadwinners, one gets sick, their unemployment benefits went out, the other one can't pay the mortgage, they lose the house to foreclosure. How do you prevent that from happening? Or maybe you've paid off the mortgage, but the house is still titled in your name. Well, I can just take it away from you in a lawsuit. I mean, if you T-bone me at an intersection because you were texting, I'll get your house. Why?
Right.
Because you own it. The wealthy don't own anything.
Right.
They use trusts. The average person doesn't think this way. So I would have to explain this to a new client. And it's not fun because the whole subject of risk is associated with pain, with loss, with death. It's not fun. It's like going to the dentist.
Right.
I actually enjoy going to the dentist, but I guess I'm a little weird. Um, so we would get all this stuff handled. And once their life was secure as you can be,
Mhm.
practically speaking, we'd say, now let's have some fun. Let's grow your net worth so you can retire in 10 or 15 years from now. But if you want to go do that right away, I'm not the guy to talk to.
And you know, there's so many weird things associated with all of these things that we think are going to help us, that we think are secure. You see the really secure guy who does everything you said he's going to do, but then some other tragedy afflicts him. You know what I mean? Or you see somebody else in music, they get famous. Well, the next thing you know, they decide they don't like fame and they kill themselves. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
many
yeah.
crazy, there's just so many variables involved. One guy that's a big influence on you is Solomon Brown. Is that correct?
Oh, Solomon, I only learned about this about 2 months ago.
You only
Before I
found out
published,
about Solomon Brown 2 months ago?
I never knew who fired the first shot, allegedly fired the first shot on Lexington Green that started the revolution.
The
And now,
Revolutionary War now you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. And now historians have determined through the writings and letters back and forth of different people who lived at that time that the odds are extremely high that it was this young man named Solomon Brown, who at the time was 19 years old. He hid behind a wall and fired at the British. He hit one of them.
And
And
that
that's
started the whole thing.
that's when the whole thing started.
So
So I
he had the balls or something?
well, either that or he's a crazy teenager, who knows, but maybe he was just ticked off. But well, actually the night before, he had been arrested along with the British are coming. Who was it?
It's not Paul Revere,
Yeah,
but
yeah, Revere. I'm
what?
sorry.
Okay, Paul
He and
Revere.
Paul Revere were retained by the British. They took their horses. Revere never made it all the way. Charles Dawes is the one who rode through and said the British are coming. Paul Revere was
Really?
arrested. Yeah, Paul Revere was arrested, but
Why did they credit? So
they
why
had
did they credit
well, the
Revere?
British had so much respect for him, they let him go. They just took his horse, and
Because he
so
was highly
and so
respected.
Solomon Brown hiked it back to town, and he was there in time, as I say, for when the party started at dawn. Could you imagine this? The most powerful military machine on horseback comes marching, dum dum dum, into town, into a sleepy little colonial village, and there's still the dawn mist, and a bunch of guys, men and boys, grab their muskets, some in their bare feet probably, and they're standing there like with their hearts pounding. And then this one guy apparently, allegedly, took a pot shot, and that lit the fuse. The whole thing was off to the races.
Of which this powerful British army eventually lost.
Yeah, and so I wrote in that essay in the book. I said, good for you, buddy. I said, you with one mini ball, you got the whole ball rolling.
Did he survive?
He lived to be, yeah, he had 19 children. He was married 3 times. He's a busy boy.
So he
And
never
he died
died
in
in any of those
no, he died in I
battles?
think he died in his early 90s. And
That's
he's
incredible.
buried in a cemetery in Vermont. And I say in
Wow.
the end of that essay, I consider that cemetery to be hallowed ground. And
Wow.
I'm going to go there this fall. I'm going to go there and see his grave.
Really?
Yes, sir. I want to stand there, give him a salute, maybe pour a beer
Poor
onto his
Vera.
grave, wave, give him a thumbs up. Yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
How many people know about this guy? Not many, just a
No,
handful, just a few
I
people.
didn't. I always wondered how it started. There were all kinds of, well, nobody knows who fired first. It would have made sense. The British were very restrained. They were under command of superior officers.
Right.
Nobody would start shooting without an order being given. But these farmers, they were just a bunch of people. They're out
Right.
of bed. They're scared, you know whatless.
How did they come out the other end with a victory? Wasn't the deck stacked against them?
Well, the very end is when the French showed up at Yorktown.
They saved the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
And I
French
think it
saved
was
the day.
General Howe was so embarrassed he wouldn't even come out and meet Washington. He sent his aide out to deliver his sword. And the British Army played a song called "The World Turned Upside Down." The Army band, "The World Turned Upside Down."
Wow.
Yeah,
If French hadn't come in and saved Washington, they
I don't
might
know.
not have got through.
Don't know. Yeah, I don't know enough about it.
It's fun to talk about history because it's kind of safe. It's already happened and all that stuff. But what's kind of a little less safe is some of these issues now that are of concern. Do you know Catherine Austin Fitz?
Oh,
You know her?
love her. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a
Yeah.
real deal. Yeah.
Well, she talks about something that I was going to say to you off camera, but we needed to get on camera. She does talk about one thing people like to do is everybody, no matter where you are, no matter where you go through history, they all want to do two things. They want to commit this outrageous immoral crime in order to steal wealth, because it seems like all of the wealth in the world at one point was stolen. It's all stolen goods. It belonged to somebody. I mean, if you ride a car up like 3 hours up the street here, okay, you'll be in upstate New York where you see Indian signs. You see the Mohawk River. You see all these, but you know, you're never going to see an Indian.
No, I know.
Right. And then
know.
what happened to them? Whatever happened to them, it's probably as distorted as all the other things that you've uncovered. I mean, it's probably some ridiculous story of nonsense that's just painted by the people who took that over. And so now we are in a situation where I think Catherine Fitz has alluded to, where and I alluded to it earlier on to make sure I talked to you about it, is this whole thing where, first of all, our courts are kind of rigged. Okay. Maybe you can get justice. I don't know. The little guy, it's very hard for the little, I don't think, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's almost that window is only like barely open, but the WeChat world that they're trying to get us into, right? The WeChat thing where we're all on an app. They want that to be our court system. They want to be ruled on by real. I mean,
you'll be voted off the plantation by somebody with 19 nose rings and purple hair.
Yeah. Who just needed a job that day.
All right.
Maybe applied that day.
Well, what they need is
we'll tell you what to say.
Yeah, they need basic universal income so they can sit there and play TikTok videos all day.
Yeah. We're going. So I don't know. Do you have any? Well, I think your strategy is to get all your ducks in a row with financially before everything blows up.
Let me mention this because you mentioned history.
Yeah.
300, 500 years from now, our life and times will be a footnote in the history books of the future. And the truth always ultimately comes out. Ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The key, the challenge is to understand the history you're living through while you're living through it. That's the challenge. That's what I have tried to do for the last 40 years. To try to understand and assimilate what's actually happening while it's happening. And to be awake and aware of what's going on, to try to, because there is no absolute truth. I mean, if only someone who's an eyewitness to history knows what happened. Everything else is hearsay.
Right.
Every book is third party hearsay, and every book has the bias of the author. That's why I said earlier, if you want to know what happened during the war of Abraham Lincoln's war, the war of Northern aggression, as real Southerners call it, read a history book that was written in 1870 or 1880. It'll tell you the absolute truth because it's fresh in everybody's mind. But by the time you get to 1910, even the World Book Encyclopedia and the Grolier Encyclopedia and the Encyclopedia Britannica have already been sterilized and whitewashed to a degree.
And anytime they can change it to fit their narrative, they just don't change it at any point along the way.
It's malleable. And now everything's electronic on the internet. And you just change it to. I remember back 30 years ago, I would edit. I go to Wikipedia, the People's Encyclopedia.
Right, which has now been co-opted.
Oh, well, it was co-opted from the beginning. But
was it? Okay.
So, yeah.
Worse now.
Yeah. So I would go edit an essay on the 16th Amendment. And an hour later, it would revert back to the original content.
No way.
Wow, this is really cool. I always do it. And then that blocked me. My passcode didn't work. Okay, no problem.
Holy shit. Now, that 16th Amendment is what you kind of shocked the hell out of G. Edward Griffith, right?
Griffin. Yeah,
G. Edward Griffin.
Well, once I shocked him, we were both speakers at a big freedom conference in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. I think it was the Luxor Hotel, the one with the big pyramid out front.
Okay.
And I was to precede him on stage, about 5,000 people. And we're sitting in the back room. And he was very nice, very amiable guy, very friendly.
Right.
And his book was famous, of course. And we got talking about it. And I mentioned the book. I said, your book reminds me a lot of Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. And his whole face, like
Ooh.
you could see it, like when people subconsciously, then they catch themselves a few seconds later.
Right.
And because
Yeah.
I knew that it's just obvious. I mean, I can't accuse the man of plagiarism. I don't want to get sued.
Right.
But the similarities are just too remarkable for words. But
Mhm.
then one chapter in the book was about the 16th Amendment. Now, his book was about financial policy and about the Federal Reserve. Now he's talking about taxes. And it was completely incorrect what he wrote. And so I tried to have a friendly conversation about it, and he got up and left the room in a huff.
Right.
That was it. Last time I ever saw him.
Well, I've noticed it. It's human nature is really something else. It's really something else. I mean, Jazz for Peace, for example, I mean, if I ever told the true story, nobody would believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of people that have tried to steal this name, but they pretended they didn't know about it until they started using the name.
Yep.
So they pretend they never heard of it. They don't pay any attention to it. They ignore press release. They do this. And then all of a sudden they just try to take it. So it's very human nature. It's just, well, the way I look at it is we have an opportunity on this planet to embrace our greatest qualities.
Yeah.
And we have an opportunity to do that. If we do that, that takes our level of consciousness, human consciousness, high to a higher level. At that level of high human consciousness, we can solve problems that are unsolvable at a lower level of human consciousness.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So that's it. And see, I said as a total accident, after I read that poem in Savannah, Georgia, when I got up here, they were waiting for me because I had a concert coming up. They're like, "What is this thing you read? People are talking about this poem you read, Jazz for Peace." And I just happened to say to the guy, if we fill our souls up with, and I said some of our more higher human conscious things, creativity, artistry, humanity, all these things, we will have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. I just said it, I didn't even know I said it. And it was lifted by those. So now if you type in my name, famous quote, that one quote comes up. But my point is, I think that's a simplified way, because when you see all these great people, whether it's a Dostoevsky or it's whoever that has done that, they've embraced higher levels of spiritual consciousness, and that's where we can get somewhere. And I think that's probably what you were trying to do when you went into homeschooling and when you went into
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
let me take control
Yeah.
over the situation
Yep.
rather than put people in other people's responsibility who care nothing about human consciousness. All these outrageous behaviors of killing and destroying things and rewriting history, they're very low human conscious activities,
They're
right?
very low. I totally agree. I speak for myself. There's nothing I as a human can do to affect what the people in Washington, D.C. are going to do. There's nothing I can do. I can write letters. I can show up. I can protest. It's nothing I can do.
Right.
But I have a lot of power when it comes to me, to Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
I can try to be as strong as I'm able to be internally for myself, morally, ethically, to do the right thing. And then I can influence the people around me who I care about, whether it's your family, extended family, your church, your neighbors, whatever it may be, your tribe, quote unquote. And I can help them try to propagate that out further. All of us can do that. Every single one of us has the power to do that. And to get back to what I said earlier, when you stand back as an observer and you don't let yourself get enmeshed in this, it's not a swamp, it's quicksand.
Oh yeah,
It's just
you got that
horrendous.
right. Yeah.
And it's very emotionally draining, it's spiritually draining, it's toxic. Just step away from it, because whatever they're going to do, they're going to do. I can't stop them.
Right.
It's like a runaway train. And you don't want to be sitting up front. The train's loaded with nitroglycerin, and you're sitting in the front row. I just want to get off the train, and then I can try to educate and help, coach, consult, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
people who think the same way when they're on the same journey fellow travelers like you and I obviously are.
Right.
And it starts with your own family, with your own children. And so that's what I tried to do. So far, knock on wood, it's worked out pretty well.
Well, some of the things you said are Stoic principles. I don't know. Do you know where? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Do you know that you're taking from different? Okay,
They're universal. They're timeless because they're
they
real.
are.
They're true.
Yeah.
Everything that's actually true is real and universal. Yeah.
Wow. I hope our listeners really get some of these things that you're talking about and really like gravitate towards these really important concepts, because what you're doing is you're diving into what the truth really is, but that can be really painful, but you're
It,
not letting it get the best of you and overwhelm you.
it can be very painful.
Yeah.
It can be very painful. Like we talked about the 5 levels of grief. You have to get through the pain, the anger, the bargaining, the disbelief, the frustration, the depression.
Right.
And then you come out the other side and you say, wow, that's how they're playing this game. It's all just a game.
It's all a game.
And we're on a planet, Rick, that's so small. Our planet is so small that from the center of the planet to any point on the surface is only 4,000 miles.
Really? The center of the Earth?
Yeah. It's 8,000 miles in diameter. It's only 4,000 miles. The radius from the center, that's like from New York to Hawaii. And astronomers admit they have no idea whether the universe has any edges or boundaries. So here we are on this tiny planet whirling around a class G star, which isn't very big as stars go. We're in the middle of nowhere and have absolutely no idea where we are. And the planet's being run by crazy people and has been for millennia. And our job as the little people is to stay healthy, happy, alive, conscious, and try to keep moving the tide of humanity in the right direction. That's the best you can do. At least that's what I don't know what more you can do than that. So,
well, it's great because you've got these little things that ride you through whatever, because everything, a lot of it is like a Bullwinkle cartoon. Bullwinkle and Rocky. I saw.
I love Hatlow's History, the Wayback Machine.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Exactly. I saw something on Bullwinkle and Rocky, and the person was talking about how futuristic that cartoon was, because they talked about how everything's wild and bedlam, but there are some things that you're carrying through, and those are the tried and true things, and all of the other stuff is noise. It's just wacky noise, and you seem to have a way of going, of delineating what is not noise, like a trader would do maybe in the markets, right?
There's a lot of things there's a lot of things I'm not good at. Okay. But if I'm good at anything at all, it's taking complex subject matter and boiling it down to a way that a 10-year-old can understand. And if a 10-year-old can understand it, any adult can understand it. And I enjoy doing it. I love teaching. It's a lot of fun.
I hate to say the word Van Allen belts, but I can't help myself. You know those Van?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what do you think of that?
Oh, it's amazing how. So when you're standing on the surface of the moon, you are effectively standing in the hard vacuum of outer space, because the moon has no atmosphere.
Okay.
You're just stuck gravitationally to this body, but you're in outer space, right?
Right.
And you're wearing a rubber spacesuit made by the Spandex Corporation, which at the time made women's bras and girdles. And you're being bombarded with lethal cosmic gamma rays and ultraviolet radiation. And you're walking around having a great time. You're there for a few days. And in the sun, it's over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. In the shade, it's like minus 200.
Wow.
And the amount of batteries it would take to maintain an air conditioning inside the lunar lander didn't even exist at that time.
Right.
I could go on and on and on and
well,
on.
I'm so sorry I had to bring it up, because and everything you're saying is exactly what I was kind of what I wanted to hear, because it's, first of all, they hired that guy, right? The 2001 Space Odyssey guy.
Oh yeah, Stanley Kubrick with front screen projection technology.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, everything looks like something that he could create.
Well, if you go to the movie 2001, in the beginning, the ape men are
Mhm.
squatting on the ground, picking up bones like the first tool, right?
Right.
But if you look closely, there's a line of demarcation between the foreground actors and the background, which was projected using a new technology he discovered called front screen projection. Well, when
Wow.
you look at all the photographs taken on the moon,
Right.
they all exhibit the exact same phenomenon. And they actually screwed up and used the same exact backdrop on two different missions. so,
And
so
there's so many missions they claimed happened between this time, and then nothing from now until the end of time. There's nothing even planned to go through those Van Allen belts. And can we even go through the Van Allen belt? No one had gone through those belts. They're radiation belts,
I
right?
don't, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's pretty amazing. I mean, the guy came back alive. We gave him a ticker tape parade. And then the handful of time they ever appeared on camera, they looked like they just came back from their own funeral. Very depressed, just very unusual. And then, of course,
Very.
you have the lunar lander. The whole surface
Mhm.
of the moon is like powder, baby talcum dust, and
And
we have these beautiful, brilliant, shiny lander pods without an ounce of dust on them, and supposedly a whatever 1,000-pound retro rocket just landed, and there's no crater. Like a crane dropped it into place.
And then the amounts of money from the budget that you can get allotted
Yeah.
to the space program because you somehow did that. But then the other thing is, well, how did you do it? And now they say that all the tapes are lost,
Well,
right? They said they recorded over the tapes. And then because of budgetary reasons, this multi-billion-dollar budget that doesn't even get audited, they couldn't buy tape. They didn't have enough money. They
no,
didn't
I
have
know.
like $7.33. They
So
didn't
he-
come up with
so
that. So they
here's what you need
recorded
to
over
know.
it.
So here's a tip for you and your audience.
Mhm.
There's a website run by a guy named Bart Sibrel,
Okay.
and I believe the website is BARTSIBREL, bartsibrel.com.
Okay.
Go there and it will change everything for you. That's all I'll say. Go there, read his book, watch his videos, and you will understand the truth.
Well, folks, I had to bring that up just because I wanted to give you folks one example of what Gordon can talk and tell you. Because anywhere I go with this man, he's got amazing information and it makes so much sense. And the bottom line is, we're in some kind of a psyop here, but we do have tried and true things that are real, like music is
Yeah,
a real thing and
yeah,
it throws up your human consciousness, and
yeah.
that's the thing that I'm after, because that's a tangible asset,
100%.
human conscious,
100%. I was a professional musician for the first 25 years of my adult life.
right,
Music is love, it's communication, it's energy, it's vibration. It brings people together across all classes, races, genders, whatever.
right,
It's a great
bingo,
unifier,
right,
and there's some of the greatest artists who ever lived. People like even pop people like Joni Mitchell
yeah,
brought us music that is just transcends time and space.
yes,
It's like some of the like Bach. Just listen to it's like it just blows your mind. Just the highest accomplishments of human beings are capable of is codified in some of the world's greatest poetry, greatest music, greatest art. And that's who we are. That's who we can be.
if you wanted to go in the right direction, you would just infuse a boatload of arts and culture that's not captured and in its freest form and at a highest level into what they are, and then you would have a different planet as we know it.
As Catherine Austin Fitz points out, they've already
Mhm.
formed the breakaway civilization.
Right.
They
What's
see them
that about?
they see themselves as an elite group of people.
Okay.
We the little people are truly dispensable and disposable in their mind.
Right. We're
You know,
not
you
one of them. They are in their own club and
yeah.
it's separate. They've
And
broken off.
As George Carlin said, it's a
Well,
big,
as he
great
said,
big
yeah.
club, and we ain't in it,
Right.
and that's the
But here's
truth.
the crazy thing. These people in this little club are operating at a lower level of human consciousness and can do all kinds of
Oh,
diabolical
yeah,
stuff to destroy each other, which
it's
they
because
do.
it's because of wealth, power, and access to force, coercion, and influence. And how did they get it? We gave it away,
We gave it away.
and that's in the book. I talk
That's
about
in the
that all
book.
that. I talk about that philosophy, like What responsibility do we have? Are you a consumer or are you a citizen? Are you a taxpayer or are you a citizen? Are you a voter or are you a citizen? Do you know how to run your own government? Have you ever read the Constitution? What's your
Right.
level of conscience? What's your level of are you conscientious? Do you have are you responsible for the way things are today? Or maybe your parents, your grandparents, were they asleep at the switch? You get the government you pay for.
Well, there was a huge amount of enabling going on. And now they're trying to get us to be on their low level of human consciousness because we're easier to rip off.
Well,
We're
sure.
easier to steal from at the
Yeah.
lower level. So they
Yeah.
want us down there so they can just, rob and grab. But then the problem is we're not useful if there's nothing to steal,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. That's absolutely right.
So then
Yeah.
what happens, right? Then they have to kill you, right?
Well, the head of the Federal Reserve in I think it was 1946, if I have the year right. His name was Beardsley Rummel, RUML. He was a Rockefeller guy. And he
Mhm.
was the top guy in the Federal Reserve. And he wrote an essay called Taxes for Revenue Are Obsolete. And he explained that a sovereign government that can print all the fiat money they want, backed by nothing, the only reason for taxation is to remove from the hands of the people some of their purchasing power and
Right.
return it to DC to prop up the value of the dollar.
Wow.
So I explained it like a toilet. So the water in the back of the tank is the money supply. The floating rubber ball is the tax rate. The flush handle is the IRS. And off it goes to Congress. Once you understand that, that's how the whole thing works. It's an incredibly elegant system that was put in place to siphon wealth from the labor of the productive to the non-productive over a period of it's been about 5 generations so far, 6 generations in this country. But they did it in every major capital throughout the world over hundreds of years.
Starting with that 1913 deal.
Well, they met on Jekyll Island in 1910, but the
Right.
act was passed in 1913.
And they got just enough people together to one so that one vote. Like some people were
Yeah,
on vacation. This guy was paid off. This guy
yeah.
was on the.
Well,
They just
yeah,
rigged it all up.
in those days, if you're going to go home for Christmas, you took the train. So if you were from Oregon, you took the train 2 or 3 weeks early to get back home again. So a very few actual representatives were left to vote, all given proxy to vote for people who had already left town. And the bill was on Wilson's desk 1 hour later, and he signed it. And then the
Which he
very
later said,
biggest
worst movie he
mistake of
ever
his
did in his
life.
life.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's so much history around, so much intrigue and fraud and corruption and cover-ups. It was all
But
it was a psychological operation to get the public to go along with an income tax that was sold to them on the basis that only the wealthy would pay it.
wow.
The newspapers said, we're going to soak the rich, quote unquote.
Wow.
But the wealthy had already bought up seats on the boards of the 25 top newspapers of the day.
Right.
There was no internet, there was no TV, there was no radio.
Right.
There was only the print media, newspapers. And
Right.
so what the public was told in newspapers was the income tax is coming, the income tax is coming, but you're not going to pay it. Only the wealthy are going to pay it. We're going to soak the rich. We're going to sock it to the big industrialists who are ripping us off. But
Wow.
they had already bought up controlling shares in the very newspapers that were telling the public this.
Right.
And they had already transferred all of their assets into layers of trusts. So they never paid a penny in tax. And that's what was happening during the era that the Tax Act of 1913 and the passage of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913 and the ratification of the 16th Amendment all occurred within 9 months of each other. It was a deal.
So
It was a package deal.
right. So that's why they think of themselves as a separate species, because when you scam somebody, you have to start your brain changes as how you look at them.
Yeah. Well,
And often you end up hating them. Like, when slaves first came over, we welcomed them because they were life-saving, right? When we first brought these settlers came over and they couldn't even make it through the winter because they couldn't farm, they couldn't do everything. But then as you brought more and more over, now you became less and less. It was almost like the devalue of the dollar.
Well, they're dehumanized. They were dehumanized. You're right.
And then as you go into meetings, because they had meetings every week where no slaves were allowed to attend their own meeting. It was a meeting about them, but they couldn't attend it.
Right. Yeah.
So they had a meeting about them that they couldn't be at. And every meeting they thought of a new ration, a new sanction, and then after you do that to somebody, just like you see in a narcissistic family, you start to hate that family member because actually that family member has like inverse mirror turned you into a loser.
Yeah.
You're a loser because
yeah.
you're on such a low level, demoralizing humanity on a low level that your level of consciousness is in the toilet. You're a loser no matter how much money you're making off the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. You disrespect them because they let you beat them. And then you dehumanize them. You otherize them. Dehumanize them.
So by you winning, you lose because, and now you hate them because it's a reverse thing because they let you beat them, but now you beat them and all you got was a whole bunch of low level energy and bad karma, basically, right?
Yep.
For your that was your trophy.
Well, we'll bring our own consciousness up here, though. Okay. So to put things on a more positive note,
yes,
in my humble opinion, we're going to see a real emergence of liberty once again.
Oh wow!
Within a generation, it might be another 10 years from now, but I think we're going to go through a hellacious period of turbulence, financial and political turbulence. But there will be a renaissance again of some sort. And all of these
coming out of the
systems,
fourth turning, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And all these governmental systems are going to fail. There's going to be a big reboot. And young people are waking up like crazy.
Right, they are. That's very possible.
So like my youngest is 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask her when she was, 17, 18, I said, what do your friends think about whether or not we ever landed on the moon? And she said, oh, nobody believes that.
Wow.
I said, really? I was like, wow, really? She said, oh, yeah. They don't really know what happened, but they don't believe anything the government says. And I thought, well, there's some hope.
Yeah, that is some hope.
Are you familiar with Martin Armstrong and Armstrong Economics?
Yes, I've heard of him.
He's the guy to go to.
Martin Armstrong.
Yeah, trust me. Go to Armstrong Economics, sign up for his blog. It's totally free. You'll get it also as emails, 2 or 3 a day.
Right.
You read those for 90 days and you will have an education.
I'm wondering, is he the same guy that spent a little time in jail over a situation?
Yeah, it's his whole story.
Okay, that's the same guy, right?
Yeah, it's the same guy. Yeah, he's the most highly respected financial analyst in the world.
Wow.
And nobody knows about him. The average person's never heard of him.
They haven't. You're right. Yeah. I have heard of him. I'm familiar with him. In fact, I heard him talking about this jail stint that he had.
Well,
what he went through. He went through the ringer.
Yeah, they tried to kill him 3 times. Yeah.
Right.
He created the world's first recognized artificial intelligence computerized system 40 years ago.
Wow.
And he fed all the data he could get his hands on into it. And it started making predictions that were so uncanny that he became a overnight celebrity among the people, the inside. When the stock market crashed in 1986, Black Tuesday dropped 25% in one day. He forecast that years in advance to the day.
Oh my God.
He forecast the collapse of the Soviet Union. Armstrong's computer is called Socrates.
Okay.
And 10 years before Russia invaded Ukraine, he forecast that.
Holy Jesus.
Yeah, and he goes on and on and on. Now, the reason is because he has discovered actual recurring cycles within our reality.
Oh, really?
And some of them are based on pi, 3.14159.
Yeah.
And the more you get into it, the more absolutely fascinating and phenomenal it is. So his computer I'm not putting him on a pedestal. I'm not adulating him.
Right.
I'm simply saying that in 40 years, it has never made a wrong prediction.
Oh my God.
So maybe the next one will be wrong. I'm just saying what the track record has been. But The computer looks at millions of data points and analyzes the world at a level of complexity no human analyst could possibly do. And it's forecasting war in Europe, a major global depression, the complete failure of the European bond market, which is why they're taking Europe to war, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then the nadir, the low point, he says, is 2032.
Okay.
After which we'll see new forms of government emerge all over the world. Nobody has any idea what they'll be,
right?
But hopefully they'll be better based on understanding of why every government we've ever created has always failed.
Right.
Which is the main thesis that I tried to cover in the book.
In the book, you covered that they've all failed, and you show us that we have to look at this fact. This is an important fact we have to look at. But you're not quite sure, nobody is quite sure how to reverse that, or do you have an idea for that?
Well, Thomas Jefferson, to paraphrase him, basically said liberty is only deserved by an enlightened, informed electorate.
Okay.
You have to take responsibility for your life, for your health, your finances, your actions, and for the people that you delegate and allow to give power over you.
Well, like I had a guy from CNN on just the other day.
Oh.
He worked for CNN for 25 years with Wolf Blitzer. He's retired now, so he can speak stuff that he couldn't say when he was on CNN.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, that thing I did at the United Nations, you're a journalist. Tell me what was more important than that was going on at the news at that time. And he just sat there and he said, you know what? I think you're right. He said he thought I was right. We've spent $3 trillion on that wacky thing over in the Middle East since I brought Israeli, Palestinians, and Americans together at the United Nations, which they didn't cover. And I told him, I said, there's 3 words that have never been said by mainstream media. Can you guess? And he couldn't. And I said, jazz for peace. And that's a fact. And I tried to ask him, like, why would that be? Over 850 concerts to help the world's most outstanding causes. How would that not fact? Like, how do those unprecedented achievements, okay, they're unprecedented, how do they get a 0? Like a complete 0, right? And all of this other wacky stuff get talked about all day long for hours on end. And if you're not talking about that, then what else aren't you not talking about? I can say you're not talking about that because I have footage from, when we went to Rwanda and to address the genocide thing brought down there by that guy. I mean, all that stuff. It's in a book called Paving the Path for Peace Through Music, which is around here somewhere. But it's in a book, and I'll put that in the thing when it comes out. I have a lot of other stuff in that book, like I have shadow banning that goes on. And what I told him, what I thought was censoring of 2 important things, peace and love.
Oh, we can't allow that.
But if you censor peace and love, I had a woman on my show that is an expert on human consciousness. She's a human consciousness expert. Okay. And she was rating she gives them all ratings and numerical ratings. And I played live for her. She said, we are stuck at a level between 20 and 200. 90% of our species, 90% of the time our species is between 20 and 200. She said, from 400 to 600 is minimum where we should be, but from 200 to 400, but 400 above is where we should be 90% of the time. And she rated my improvisation 540. And she rated peace at, you have to see the episode. And she rated peace at 600.
Wow, good for you. Yeah.
Right. But I only lucked into it. I'm like Jed Clampett, I was shooting at some food and up through the ground come bubbling crude, because I just messed around at the piano and then I noticed, oh my God, something's going on with my chi. I don't know what to call. I don't know the name of it because I was so young. But I noticed I was like way up here, and then when I walked out, I like floated down to everyone else's level of human consciousness. You know what I mean? And then further, if someone took me on some confrontation over some nonsense or whatever, where you get into the real low jealousy and hatred, envy's a bad one.
But you can only allow yourself to feel envy. I can hurl words at you all day long and insult the heck out of you.
Right.
But who actually insults you?
Right.
You insult yourself.
Who's that guy? Edward Bernays?
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So Edward Bernays came up with this thing and nobody bought it, but they didn't. They started by the pancake mix, but they did buy it when they put an egg in it. So in other words, when the woman had to participate with the egg, all of a sudden now they could do it. Now there was a
Yeah, sure.
participation. But what you're talking about, we actually do have to participate. You're right. They can hurl it at us, but it's our participation that suckers us down there.
Sure.
But with the piano, there's nobody hurling anything at, so I can't slip on their banana peel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I can slip on it. I mean, like you said, we're humble people. I mean, I admit I fall for a lot of bullshit. You know what I mean? I have to learn from the philosophers, all the great ones, Plato and Aristotle. Aristotle a lot when it comes to governments. Aristotle was unbelievable on that shit. Like identifying, like, if we're in a monarchy or a patriarchy, this or that. Like right now we're in oligarchy, which is the worst one.
Yeah.
We're in the worst one, which is classic for fourth turning.
Towards the end of their lives, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to Samuel Adams from Virginia up to Boston, recognizing his role in the Revolution. And he said, you taught us that it was not just British monarchy that you were opposed to, but monarchy.
Right.
And he paid him the highest compliments in that letter.
So he wrote the letter to
Samuel Adams, father of the American Revolution, Sam Adams.
Okay. That's why he has a beer named after him.
He was right. He was the man. He was unbelievable. The stuff
Samuel
that he pulled.
Adams.
Yeah. Pretty much whitewashed out of American history books. I mean, the average kid in high school doesn't know anything about him.
Really?
Or Thomas Paine. Or Thomas Paine, who wrote the pamphlets that ignited the entire colonies. Common sense. Yeah.
So those were the real heavy hitters back in those days.
Oh, yeah. It's always the second level guys. Patrick Henry.
So what happens is at any moment, they can pull a switcheroo on you and just take that guy out and put their guy in, right?
Sure. It's the old Hegelian dialectic.
One person that we stuck in big time was Ronald Reagan. Seemed to do.
Reagan was a closet socialist. Reagan was people have no idea who Reagan was when he was coming up through California.
The first thing he did that bothered me as a child was, what are you telling those people they can't go on strike? Like, you just said something that is wrong for the America that we knew. Like, he changed it that day.
When Reagan gave a speech, he came out the back of that hotel and the shots were fired. A top news correspondent named Judy Woodruff, I think was her name, said that a shot had been fired from the roof of the building. That went down the memory hole. When Reagan got to the hospital, they found a flechette. He had been hit fired from a CO2 pistol. It's the size of a dime, but it's razor sharp and rotates at very high velocity. It had gone right under his armpit and hit a rib. Took the doctors 3 times to find it. And after that, he just shut up, put on his cowboy boots, and stayed at the ranch.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're saying Reagan, there's 2 Ronald Reagans. So Ronald Reagan 2.0 started that day after he said,
what I'm saying is he got the message.
Okay.
He got the horse's head in the bed, like in The Godfather.
Right, like in The Godfather.
Yeah. Now, ordinarily, the Secret Service would have a whole phalanx walking on both sides of you. The limousine would be right at the end of the sidewalk with the door open.
So they pulled a Kennedy on him.
The Secret Service was on one side only. The limo was down the road a couple, 20 or 30 feet. Yeah. And then Judy Woodruff saw this other shot fired, and it never made it another cycle on the news. It's like the OKC building bombing, Oklahoma City.
Right.
The local reporter on the ground from the local TV station was standing there with a microphone saying how the BATF was carrying unexploded ordnance out of the building. But within hours, that never made it to CNN, never made it on a national news cycle. It just disappeared. The truth always comes out immediately right after something happens because there's no way to cover it up.
Right, just like with the explosions, people saying that the World Trade Center all the explosions, they heard explosions.
Here's a thought experiment for you. The World Trade Centers were 104 stories high. Okay. Right. A few days later, after all the dust had cleared, the rubble piles were a few stories high. Now, when a building is brought down by controlled demolition, all the original material still exists. It's just distributed on the ground. If those buildings had pancaked all the way down, as we were told, it might have the remaining building might have been 20 stories high with tangled beams sticking out everywhere at all odd angles, and
Right.
there was hardly any debris pile at all.
Right.
So where'd the other 100 stories go? Where'd they go? So no, I have an answer. I'm not going to get into it.
Okay. Yeah.
But when you take someone's mind that far,
Mhm.
they come up against a hard brick wall. They have to recognize what I was told didn't happen.
Right.
Because in the physical, real world, it can't possibly have happened. So
Right.
then you go into, well, then what did happen? Who, where, what, why, when, and how? Who did it? How they do it? Why they do it? Now
Right.
you're off. Now you're off in a different universe.
Right.
But
But
just
that looked like a demolition when I was watching it,
there were explosions that took place all the way down.
all the way down.
But what made
But you had
99?
to wire that thing. You have to wire that days in advance. I mean, it
But
takes
that
weeks to wire that thing, right?
100%. And the weekend beforehand, the entire complex was shut down.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
And there was somebody related to the Bush family in charge.
No,
of
we can go.
water
We can go down. We can go on this for
Yeah,
hours.
that go on
But
forever.
the main
right?
point I wanted to make was
Mhm.
most of the building went away. It went away. It was no longer on the street. It wasn't sitting on the streets of New York.
Correct.
It went away.
Right.
How is that possible?
Right.
And where did it go? And how did they do that? Once you understand that, you're off on a whole new understanding of advanced technology and lots of things that have happened in the last 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in other words, just a controlled demolition wouldn't have
Well,
created
you can
that.
prove it. Again, I like to use science because science doesn't lie. Okay? If you had stood on the top of the World Trade Center with a bowling ball, it would have taken about, I think it's 12 seconds to hit the street.
If you dropped
And,
it.
and there's a formula you can look at online, which is the rate of acceleration of a falling body. So when you look at video playbacks, YouTube playbacks of the buildings coming down,
Right.
you see the tower at the top,
Mhm.
antenna. It took almost exactly 12 seconds to hit the street.
Right.
Well, that's not possible in a controlled demolition or a
Wow.
pancake, because even in a pancake collapse, if it took a tenth of a second or a quarter of a second for each floor to crush, multiply that by 104 floors.
And there were no like
Yeah.
beams still sticking up in the air
No.
or anything.
No, multiply that by 104 floors, you got way more than 12 seconds.
So what do you think happened?
The only way that could happen in our physical universe is if there was no physical mass between the top and the bottom of the building. It could come down at essentially free fall speed. And you can do it yourself with a stopwatch and a formula that you learn in college. It's
So
undeniable.
you're saying it had been hollowed out or something?
Well, I'm
Something
saying
had been hollowed
it
out?
gets back to my earlier point. Where did the building go?
Where did it go?
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean there were floors in there, right?
Yeah, there was a real
were-
building, 104 real floors, yeah.
So
And only about 4 of them ended up in a pile on the street.
so where did they go?
Right, they just turned to dust and blew away. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And
we'll talk. We could talk sometime off air, and
yeah.
I don't want,
okay.
I didn't come here to be
Yeah.
the latest kook with a tinfoil hat. I've just
Right.
I
But
read
you
a-
have
I
an
re-
idea. You have an off-air idea. on that.
everything that's worth knowing is in a book.
Right.
You just have to know which book and read it.
Right. Well, that's what I was telling my listeners. I mean, there's so many things, and I could go on for so long. But
Yeah.
I'm really just so glad you were able to take the time today. And we have gone, longer than our regular one, just because
No, this was awesome. This was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it a lot.
Well, thank you so much. And basically, for people to stay in touch with you, go to Amazon, get the book. That's number one.
Yeah,
right?
I got the domain name theriskyreader.com.
Okay.
If you
I
type it
saw
into
that.
your browser, it takes you right to the listing on Amazon.
Okay. So, folks,
theriskyreader.com, yeah.
yeah, that's simple as that, folks. TheRiskyReader.com. Go there, and that will get you started down a rabbit hole that may never haven't, could be bottomless as far as I can tell, because you've been, I mean, since that day, you have been on the case with so many,
Oh yeah.
digging into so many things. It's absolutely phenomenal.
And my contact information is at the very end of the book. If anybody wants to get in touch, they're welcome to.
Okay, great. And then
Yeah.
there's also the website where people can check out the class,
Oh,
right?
Gordon Phillips Academy. There's two L's
That's
in my
just
last name. Gordon Phillips with two L's,
like you
academy.com.
Okay, so that's the other one, folks.
Yeah.
That's the other website. Check out Gordon Phillips Academy.
Yeah.
Well, folks, this was an amazing conversation, an amazing podcast, and I'm
It
so
was fun.
today. And we're going to stay in touch with Gordon, and I'm going to stay in touch with him, and he's a lifelong friend. And I want you are all lifelong friends, even though I know who a lot of you are. But I'm so glad you all continue to stick with us here at the Jazz for Peace podcast, where the final solution is love.
Love, baby. 100%.